Welcome to the webinar, The AI Investments Paying Off in Waste and Recycling Right Now. My name is Laura Thiesel, and I'll be your moderator for today's discussion. Now, in the waste and recycling industry, a single fleet of trucks generates thousands of data points across routes, loads, equipment, and customer interactions every day. This industry doesn't lack data, but it's only in recent years that operational leaders have started acting upon that data. Now, with the rise of agentic AI, all this data is more important than ever. Well, why? Because agentic AI is changing the game, and it's not just in theory, but in the yard, on the route, and in the dispatch center. You may be asking yourself, how is AI different from the automation we've already been using? Well, we're going to address that very question today and show you how agentic AI is creating measurable ROI now, not in some future state. The operators who are pulling ahead aren't waiting to implement this technology, nor are they letting the proverbial perfect be the enemy of the good. So we're going to reveal how you can get started to make a tangible impact on your operations with agentic AI now. But before we jump into our discussion, here's a look at what we'll be covering today so you know what to expect. First, some simple housekeeping items. At the bottom of your screen, you'll find some application widgets for your use. These widgets are all resizable and movable, so feel free to move them around to optimize your desktop space. Please know the slides today will advance automatically throughout the presentation. To enlarge the slides, click the Enlarge Slides button that's in the top right corner of your presentation window. Now, we do encourage you to submit questions using the Q&A widget throughout the presentation. We will try to answer your questions during the webcast, but if we run out of time or, can't get to it, just know that we do capture all your questions and we'll refer them to one of our experts to follow up with you later. Okay, let's introduce our speakers. I am joined today by Evan Schwartz, who is the Chief Innovation Officer with AMCS, the leading provider of AI-powered software solutions specifically designed and built for the waste industry. Evan has been driving enterprise transformation across industries for over 30 years. He's currently leading global initiatives at AMCS to embed AI-driven practices, and he's also teaching these and other computer science principles at Jacksonville University. So, Evan, we're so glad to have you today.
To be here. This is exciting.
Yeah, we're also joined by Anton Morin, Global Head of Pre-Sales and Sales Enablement at AMCS. Now, Anton has been leading software development and implementation for over 25 years, with the last 10 plus years at AMCS. Now, he works with clients on digital transformation and agentic AI solutions, as well as service delivery. So, Anton, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Laura. Nice to be here.
All right. Well, to start us off, let's talk about data in the waste and recycling industry. You know, data is always mentioned as the foundation of AI solutions. So what do operation leaders need to know about the wealth of data at their fingertips? Anton, we'll start with you here.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, so look, at AMCS, we've been helping operators with their digital transformation for many, many years now. And it's true, they do have a huge amount of data available to their decision makers, right? We're talking route logs, weighing tickets, customer data, prices, billing events, vehicle telematics, camera feeds, pictures, container locations, and of course the inventory of their material. And I can hope to show you the impact of some of this data a bit later on in the webinar with our demos, and how that can have a real impact on their business, whether it's pricing services or reducing costs in their business. So, you know, the waste recycling industry is one of the last industries to make this transformation. And quite often what we see is operators that still have fragmented legacy systems out there with very poor data quality. This lack of a unified data layer really holds them back and keeps that data locked up and unavailable for analysis and decision making. So yeah, it's true. The foundation for any AI solution is to have an ERP system in place, like the MCS platform, that can really unify this data and trigger real action available to the AI solutions.
Yeah, those are good points to start us off there. You know, thank you for that. And Evan, you know, I'd just like to get your thoughts here too. You know, how is data readiness evolving in this industry?
Yeah, so Anton makes a great point around the digital transformation of data because, look, if you've watched anything I've ever put out into the industry, I often say that there is no change without pain. Why would you change if there's no pain associated? So there is a sense that the waste industry and the recycling industry are late to the game, but they've been collecting this data the entire time. What they were waiting for was a compelling reason to really adopt and leverage this data across all of their business to be able to generate the efficiencies that are necessary. There was a number of pressures that started to push down on these industries that drove them into this very efficient data analytics. So we're all very familiar with what happened with COVID, the needed to get off of brick and mortar systems. Paper systems weren't going to do it anymore. And one of the things that you're going to see that is going to be key for AI, and we'll be looking at that a little bit later, is it's more than just quality. As Anton says, it's unified data. What you might see or hear that in the industry is context, right? But there's more than context than just pure data. So with the right pain, compliancy around sustainability and activities like that, COVID to get off of your remote, companies started to see and have the compelling reason to dig into their data to enable themselves to operate remote. And that began to expose some really powerful efficiencies to be able to excel and get margins. Now that led to what we consider the first stage of automation, which was just static, predictable ways to automate things. But this is a very complex and dynamic industry. You don't always get to have the same repeatable activities that you can count on that traditional automation is going to work for you. So that's where the age of the agentic AI is going to really play a good part of that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting, evolution that this industry is going through. So thank you for that, Evan. And let's talk about what's coming next. Why is agentic AI different than the other forms of automation that waste operators have already implemented? Evan, we'll stay with you here on this.
Okay. Yeah. So if you look at traditional automation, the automation is still two parts. The process, what we would consider the knowledge, the flow, the parts of the data that involve the processing are baked into the automation. And it's predictable, and you can think of all the possible variants and use cases. So traditional automation tends to work, and you just insert your data into that, and that automation, that flow produces the result you're looking for. But that represents less than 10% of this industry. The dynamic nature of this industry has a lot of fuzzy logic, has so many infinite variations across the data. You need something that is a little more sophisticated, capable of making very informed decisions. So that means that your data has to be more than just clean. It has to provide knowledge and allow the workflow to be adjusted just in time. Agentic technologies gives us the ability to do that. If I understand that I would run this flow under condition A, but I might change it slightly under conditions B if parameter C was this, you're able to provide that context now in natural language into the agentic system based on the platforms that you have provided. That enables you to do much more complex workflows and automations, being able to delegate those processes down into the agentic AI. If at any point the LLMs, the brain that an agent depends on to do flow, if it has to go into that LLM to be able to work out the workflow steps and make decisions about your business, you're going to get hallucinations. You're going to get what's plagued the adoption of AI across the industry. So that's where context and the knowledge around prompting these agents comes in very powerfully. And we'll look at really the difference that a strong system with powerful context gives. But there's a two-step approach to the adoption. So as Anton brought up, it's a digital transformation problem first. It's not a tech problem anymore. We've solved the technology. Now the adoption has to get through. So the recommendation would be to go across your current processes and find those low value but necessary activities in your business and see if you can delegate those to the agentic system. Allow your people to take the high value, high return on investment outcomes to your people and delegate the output to your agents. And that shift from output to outcomes is really the last battle that's going to allow agentic activities to shine within your business, because that's going to affect your bottom line. Having people produce, PowerPoint presentations or simple messages that need to go out to your customer base in the terms of thousands. Imagine the efficiencies or the improvements you would get if you needed to communicate out to your customers, but you could do it almost deliberately, distinctly to each and every customer based on that customer's needs, based on the data and the context of your business, how your business runs. That is incredibly powerful, and that'd be perceived as a differentiator. It's almost boutiquing your communication stream to your customer on a customer by customer basis. Today, that's not possible without the agentic technologies and layers. That becomes the differentiator within your business. How are you addressing bottom line impact, focusing on outcomes, and allowing agents to do your output production?
Yeah, that's a really important distinction there, the outputs versus the outcomes. So thank you for speaking to that. And we'll dive into some examples of those outcomes and how agentic AI, is making an impact. But first, Anton, what are some of the tools that waste companies need to make this all work here?
Yeah. So look, as previously mentioned, obviously that foundational layer, having all your data in a single coherent schema available in your IT landscape. That's number one. Secondly, I would say the completeness of that data. You need to ensure that you're capturing all your transactions and data digitally. We still see a lot of tribal knowledge out there. I was talking to a customer last week, and I've shown them some optimized routes, and they were wondering why a particular route visit was at the start of the day rather than the middle of the day. And then they told me, I said, well, then look, there's an access rule on that. You can only visit it between 7 and 8. And then they also said, yeah, but you can also visit it at 11 a.m. So all this sort of tribal knowledge needs to get digitized, right? That's not to say don't wait for everything to be digitized. You may have pockets of data that are really well developed and that allow you to start AI projects. But ultimately, you have to digitize all of your data. When you can do that, then you can make real impact. The other tools I would say you need, obviously, having real-time APIs, getting access to that data. We still see a lot of operators out there that have an IT landscape that relies on file-based integration and not real-time integration between different silos. This is a no-no for AI. You will not be able to get to the data you need. So having real-time APIs and integrations across your landscape is must. And of course, the number one thing, that MCP layer, having the context on top of that data, that's really critical to allow the agentic AI to execute. When it goes to execute, it'll also need event triggers and event hooks. That needs to be available in your platform so the agentic AI can actually perform tasks as well and trigger workflows. And of course, having real-time integration to your IoT devices. So we'll show you some demos in a while. And, we're going to be, a lot of what we're looking at is data that comes from telematics systems. It might come from your weighbridge. It might come from containers. And so having your system integrated in real time out to all of those devices is really important too. And of course, auditability, security, that's really important too. AI will make mistakes. You will start small, you'll build up confidence in it, but when it does go wrong, you're going to want to see where it went wrong, and to be able to understand that audit trail is really, really important as well. So luckily, of course, our AMCS platform has all these features and principles built into it, but they're the real tools you need to start your AI journey.
Yeah, thank you for those insights there, Anton. And let's dig a little deeper into exactly how agentic AI makes a difference in the day-to-day. Anton, I'll stay with you here. What are some back office functions where agentic AI is helping today?
Yeah, look, in the back office, there's many examples I can think of to talk to Evan when he talked about those low value, but actually really, really critical work, right? I'm thinking about things like financial confirmations, when you need to confirm the work you've done so you can get your invoices out. That can be very time consuming. If you're paying your suppliers, doing things like bill matching, a lot of AP bill matching is very manual still today. And there's operators out there with rooms full of people, and they're going line item by line item through invoices. A lot of that can be best served with agentic AI. Also, payment reconciliations, when you get paid for your services, how to allocate payments against the right service. These are things that can be very manual in nature and really lend themselves to be augmented with agentic AI, allowing those operations then to scale, and to get paid more quickly as well, right? Dispatch, that's another big area. Are your trucks out there? Are they making redundant trips? Are your drivers executing the rounds in the right sequence? Are they honoring access times? Are they tipping too many times during the day? Things like that all affect route profitability. So being able to analyze that properly and to get insights. So, you may want to move certain stops to different routes or set certain days to get an optimized route. All this helps reduce mileage and driver time, generating obviously bigger margin for operators. And we regularly see savings between 5 and 25% with the increased utilization of vehicles out there. So there's sort of two areas that we can have real impact.
Yeah, and those are great examples there. Evan, what are some customer service activities where agentic AI is making an impact now?
So I would say some of the ones that really come to mind right off the bat is when things go off rails and you know that there's been something released into your customer base that's going to cause a flood into your call center. Imagine a billing error going across tens of thousands of customers, and it was a calculation error. Maybe it was a bad rate, maybe it was a bad tax, and it stood out. Maybe it was even a wrong messaging that just went out and it went across tens of thousands of customers. Could you imagine the work required to dig in, get to every customer, find out what the calculation should be, figure out what the right messaging should be? Do you call the customer? Do you wait for the customer to call in? Do you try to put together a special billing run to send out a corrected error? That could take, depending on the size of the mistake, that could take weeks for humans to get in and do that. Now, if we reimagine that same scenario over an agentic system, that a steward was what we call this as an AI stewardship, the person that's engaging the agent to send it out to do these kind of ad hoc activities, is the steward is identifying to the agent what went wrong at a high level, and then asking the agent to go out and identify all of the affected records based on what went wrong, bringing back tens of thousands of records, and now saying, okay, go over this, calculate the right answer, create a tailored script, go look up each one of these customers in my system. What is the preferred method of communication? Is it email? Is it SMS? Do I have to print and mail something to let them know? Figure that out, put that tailored message together, and send that messaging out quickly to try to stave off a flood of calls into your call center. Mm-hmm. If you're calculating the average call into a call center is could be anywhere between $8 to $14 a call, you've just diverted a tremendous amount of cost that was coming at you due to what could be a simple billing mistake that replicated across tens of thousands of invoices that unfortunately the math was right, it was the setup that was wrong. So it would have passed your final confirmation from humans, because it's not possible for humans to check, 100,000 bills before they go out. Spot check, the math all looked right on the invoice, boom, the bill went out. Agents can do a lot of that work. And rather than having a floor full of 20 or 30 human people going through this, grinding for the error, trying to figure it out, contacting customers to try to avoid the call, this is something an agent could do within 30 minutes to an hour and have sent out that communication properly into your customer base saying, we know there was an error, here's what happened, here's what your actual bill will be, you'll be receiving a corrected bill within days, and you've stopped the call center from being overwhelmed with these issues. We've all experienced it with outages as simple as our internet. You call in to complain, and immediately the agent on the phone tells you we're aware of an outage. It's those types of preventative agentic capabilities that you can now insert into your business that just save costs when the unfortunate happens. But there's a number of things that you can use within your standard day-to-day operations. Having an agent pick up the phone, if you understand the profile of your average caller and you know that 70% of that is just a question about their bill, paying their bill, or ordering a quick service that you can delegate to an agent, let's just divert all of that into an agent and only allow the heavy lifted stuff to go into your human call center, right? Those are the types of ways that you're going to need to start looking at your business differently. But the first step is delegate low value, necessary activities, get AI to pay for itself, and then come back and look at being an agentic first business model. We saw this back in the late 80s, early 90s, up to 95. Internet came out. Businesses threw internet over their entire company, and it was kind of a so what. My filing cabinets are still overflowing with paper. My desks are still covered with stamps. I got staples and staple removers everywhere. Why do I need the internet? Today, we can't even imagine someone opening a company or a business without internet capability. It just doesn't make sense. We're seeing that same transformation going forward today with AI, but we're bringing to the table with our customers a strategy and a process for adoption of AI, which is kind of where we started on this conversation.
Yeah, great examples there. And Evan, and what I'm hearing from you and Anton is, those business outcomes, essentially protecting or building your margins, And I believe you have some
100%.
demo examples that help these margins, correct? So we're going to get into some demos here.
Yeah, let me just share my screen. Let me know if you can see that.
We do see it. So you are set
Okay.
to go.
Great. So look, I'm going to show three things today. We're going to show an example of an AI agent that can help look at some jobs and determine margin and hopefully improve those margins. We're going to look at an assisted workflow called AI Call Assist that can help your CSOs get to the root cause of issues and close off calls really quickly. And we're also going to take a look at something from our business intelligence line. We're going to look at a root profitability report, right? So let's start with the margin intelligence agent. So what this agent is doing is it's going to look at all the roll-off jobs I have in this particular database. It's going to access those via our MCP layer. It's going to fetch jobs. It's going to look at the various different hauling cost agreements we have in place. It's also going to look at the revenue associated with those jobs, calculate that. It's going to cross-check it with those weighbridge tickets. So again, it's really important to have your IoT devices integrated into the system to get that information in there. And then it's going to calculate the margin on those jobs. So we can see it's looked at 18 jobs here in particular. It's showing that we have an 18.9% margin. It's showing a couple of the jobs are unprofitable and 3 at risk as well, right? So let's take a deeper look. So this one, it looks like it's sticking out. So this one is a job. It's a roll-off. It's a 20-yard open-top roll-off, and it's on a flat rate all-in fee, right? So this is quite common in the industry, right? So there's two components to it. There's the haul revenue and the disposal revenue. And we can see here for this particular job, it was $840, but it actually cost us $1,215, right? Which obviously we're losing our shirt on this business, a negative margin of 44%, right? So what's been driving that? What the analysis is telling us is that, both the haul and disposal components are underwater. And why is that? Well, the big one is the disposal component here. And we can see here that there was 8.1 tons in this particular roll-off, which is very heavy for a roll-off of that size. So clearly, this particular customer was putting some really heavy material in there. Maybe it was concrete or something like that. And we were only actually budgeting for about 4 tons of material in this particular roll-off. So then it's suggesting, if we want to get to a 15% margin, we need to find another $589 somewhere, right? So what I would propose to do with a job like this is go from a flat rate to a haul plus pass-through type model, right? So if we click on this, we can see that it's recommending that we go through that haul plus pass-through. It recommending a $774 fixed rate haul fee and then a pass-through rate of $80 per ton. And that should protect our margin on jobs like these. It'll give us margin between 15 and 18%. So I'm just going to flag that for review. That goes to our pricing queue, where it will get dealt with our finance team. So that's a really good example of changing model. Second example here, this one's unprofitable. We're losing $9 on this job. You can see here, In this case, our disposal revenue is pretty good. It's got a 21% margin, but where we're losing money is on the haul. And what the analysis is telling us is that this haul revenue here of $880 is no longer covers the haul costs of $1,030, and fuel is the primary driver. So our fuel hasn't kept pace with the rising diesel costs, right? So disposal is performing within budget, but it's suggesting that we, either up our haul or put in a surcharge on fuel. That's quite often, we see that a lot today with operators out there. They're putting out fuel charges, fuel surcharges, or they're increasing the price of haul, right? So I'm going to flag that we need to raise haul on this particular job. And again, we'll flag that to be communicated to the customer. And just one more example here, we'll go to Gulf Coast Logistics. So in this particular case, it's a pretty low margin deal. So this is an at-risk deal. We can see that, one big thing that jumps out here is the fact that this container spent 22 days on site, and they have no rental clause in their agreement. So the analysis is telling us that, look, okay, we're not making a ton of money on haul, but look, there's 15 days of overage on a rental. And if we had a rental clause here, we could be charging $10 a day rental here. So what I'm going to do with this particular one is go and put that clause in this customer, right? So we'd like to put in this, and that should give us an extra $150 of revenue if this happens again, and that will increase our margin by 10%. So look, that's just very simple ways, and hopefully what you can see there, if you get access to data, and more importantly, if the LMMs can get access to the context that's provided by our MCP layer, it can make those decisions, it can generate those insights, and it can really have a huge impact on the profitability on these type of jobs.
Yeah, and so before Anton sort of jumps off of this report, I'm gonna re-echo that, because there's been a year and a half of industry not being able to get value and ROI out of AI. And I cannot say enough that we hear a lot of harping on good and clean data, but we don't really describe to industries what good, clean data means. What you saw in that analytics report was not only that's companies' specific protected margin requirements, that's context, that's knowledge, that's you describing how your business runs. One of the things that trips people up about AI a lot is it knows everything there is to know about the industry you're in, but doesn't know anything about your business. So having an AI system that doesn't give you the ability to provide your context, your knowledge, those recommendations, those margin fits, that analysis, that is the exact same skill, the exact same analytics report that 150 different customers would get, but its analysis would come back very differently based on the context within our AI context management governance system. You get to describe the way your business wants to work. That comes and shines out through our MCP layer. That's what makes agentic AI work, is knowledge plus data. And you're going to see more and more of that with each of these examples. This isn't a pre-baked tool that Anton's showing off. This is a framework that the agents are able to use that context, do analysis, and present back not only what it's seeing, but recommendations based on the knowledge that you provide. That's the power. That's the benefit. All right, Anton.
Thanks, Evan. Okay, I'm going to show you an assisted workflow now. So we have this little agent called AI Call Assist, and if we have a look at it, so we can see there's a live scenario. So if I'm a CSR, I'm getting a call, it's Murphy's Recycling. Hi, I'm calling about our account, Murphy's Recycling. We were charged for a collection last Thursday. That never happened. We also had 2 missed collections this month and nobody told us. I want to know what's going on. I want it fixed now, right? So CSR is going to use Ava, our Call Assist AI, to help with this particular incoming query, right? So what the agent is going to do is, first of all, identify the customer. Yeah, it's going to verify the dispute by looking at the history of interactions with that customer. It's going to look at the invoices to see what charges happened. It's going to look at the various different contact information that's been coming from this customer. And then it's going to attempt to resolve this issue. So it's giving me a suggestion of what to say to the customer right now. Thank you for calling. I can see your account here. I'm pulling everything together now. I completely understand your frustration, and I'm going to get this sorted for you in the next few moments. Okay, so Ava has returned the following information around Murphy's Recycling: account details. They have a service agreement. They're on a weekly general waste collection every Tuesday, Thursday. It's had a look at the route visits over the last 30 days. You can see last Thursday, the 24th, there was a route visit. A route visit record exists, but no completed job recorded. There was an unmatched lift in which the driver manually matched to the account, but this was 50 meters away from their last successful lift, right? So maybe that bin was incorrectly matched to this particular customer. 3 weeks ago, there was a no access, but no customer notification was triggered. 2 weeks ago, again, it's an incomplete visit. Driver logged a blocked access note, but again, no customer notification sent. It's had a look at the invoices. You can see that an invoice was raised for $87.50, and this is outstanding. And it also notes there's no existing credit notes on this account, right? It's had a look at the contact history for this particular call, and there's been no complaints logged within the last 90 days. So this is the first time we're hearing about this call, right? So then the LMM is coming up with some recommendations, right? So it's suggesting that we raise a credit note. We flag the transport about the lack of notifications for the blocked access, and to implement a service recovery, right? To offer a priority rebook. Okay, so it's giving me a closing script. So here's what happens. Our records show that on Thursday, our driver carried out a lift, which was manually matched to your account. However, the GPS data shows that this took place 50 meters away from your last confirmed collection point. This means we can't verify the collection made at your premises, and I can confirm that we should not have charged you for that. I'm raising a credit note for $87.50 right now. I've also found 2 earlier collections where our team had access issues and we didn't notify you. I sincerely apologize for this. I'm flagging this to our operations team today, and I'll arrange a priority collection for this Thursday to make it right. You'll receive a confirmation email within the hour. Is there anything I can help you? Anything else I can help you with? Right, and then it's offering 1-word approvals for this CSR to go and execute that work. And you can see how the MCP layer calls that it's been making to carry out this. So this is a great example of agentic experience. CSR in this case hasn't even had to use the user experience on our software to resolve this item. And again, just showing the power of how it can augment a CSR with these types of issues. Okay. And finally, I'm just going to call up our route profitability report. Right, so this is a profitability report we ran on a route inside our system. So route 6152, it's an FEL route, so it's a front-loading route. It's got some operational facts, so it knows the driver, knows the truck, knows the capacity of the truck. The planned start date or time of the route was meant to be 7 a.m. to 5 o'clock. Actually started 73 minutes late. It did 195 miles, of which 107 were disposal miles and 88 were collection miles. So even at that says to me, we're spending a lot more mileage going to tipping sites rather than collection. So I'm assuming this is a pretty low density route. There were 90 stops planned, 98 lifts, 4 disposal trips, and a net tonnage of about 42 tons in terms of tips. So this route isn't doing too well. You can see here the total revenue for the route is 3,930, and total costs have gone above that. So it's actually running at a loss, this particular route, right? And you can see how the breakdown of those numbers, all the various different service charges that make up that revenue, and all the different operating costs that make up the costs. So you can see here, disposal is a huge amount of cost on this particular route. Okay, so unfortunately, we have a negative gross profit of this, minus 60 bucks. What is also noted is that we've done 4 round trips to tipping sites. So 55% of the distance we traveled and 55% of the fuel burnt here was tipping. So maybe there's a case, and you can see here on this particular, on the last tip, it was underweight. So maybe there's a case of, could the driver have squeezed more into the first 3 tips and negate that last trip? It's also broken down the various different stops, the types of containers, 2 yards, 4 yards, 6 yards, 8 yards that are available that were on this particular route. It's shown the revenue associated with those. And it's also shown us which of these container sizes is making money and which containers are we losing money on. So we can see here in the 6 yards, we're making good profit on those. We're making 13% margin, but we're losing our shirts on the 8 yards. So that says to me we need to do some repricing there on those 8-yard skips. So it gives you this data. It'll also give you revenue per stop. It'll give you revenue per yard of capacity, and we can see the 8 yards are underperforming here, and actually the 2 yards per yard capacity are actually doing the best. So we know we're loss making there, and ultimately it's doing a review of the capacity. So those 3 tips that we did, you can see here the last one was underweight, and you can see here maybe we could have squeezed a bit more into the 3rd and to the 2nd tip. Or maybe we could have left that 4th tip to the following day, right? So ultimately, we'll go through all the data. It will leverage the knowledge. It also shows me how we executed the route. Did we do things in sequence? So you can see here, it's showing me what was done in sequence, what was done out of sequence, where we did our tips, the 4 tipping events, because this started so late, we missed these 5 jobs at the end of the day, and there was also a service window violation as well, right? So it's going to develop now insights based on that data. So if we scroll down, because there's a lot to go through here, we can see the insights that it's going to give me for this particular route. So first up, it's going to say that there was one particular stop that we didn't get to within its window, and it's recommending we move that to the first 5 to 10 stops, and that will stop the violation. It's saying we should open a pricing review on our 8-yard skips. We're losing money there, so we should be upping our prices. It's encouraging us to implement a 3-tip policy here to see if there's any way we could have done those disposals in 3 tips rather than 4. It's also looked at various different extra charges that we incurred along the route. It might have been an overfill, or it might have been a futile, it might have been an access issue, might have been a blocked gate or a locked gate or something like that. We should be charging for those events. So it wants us to verify that those charges made it to the invoices. It's saying here, Chipotle warrants extra billing as a driver out. He had to get out and haul a bunch of bags to get access, and he has photo evidence to back that up. So all these type of insights we can get from that data, but only if that data is complete. And you're seeing here, a bunch of telematics data, pricing data, scalehouse data, logistical data, all coming together to give this insight and this sort of profitability dashboard. And that can have a huge impact then on your business, as you can imagine. Okay, so there are the 3 things I wanted to show. Evan, did you want to say anything about any of the other 2, or are we good?
Yeah, so the only thing I might add on to the second one, which was the customer service automation, is that's a great example that also includes governance. So we've had a lot of conversation about context, which is data and knowledge, but you may have heard Anton call out by name Ava, right? Ava is our orchestrator agent. Ava is our agentic interface that understands from a reasoning standpoint the flow, but she depends entirely on MCP and sub-agents to go do mining, go do some specialized analytics, go do special work into the system, and collect maybe bits of data so that she can work out the flow and support. A simple governance rule in that customer service module was, Ava, you're not allowed to directly talk to my customer. Now that could have a major impact on a number of the agents that are in the system. So rather than trying to communicate directly over IVR or sending a communication back to the customer, that communication was surfaced to a CSR, given a script for a human to look at that, because maybe your particular governance or your differentiators, we always have a human touch. But that doesn't mean you don't get to leverage the agentic capabilities. She's driving the script behind the scenes. She's helping you consistency across each and every one of your CSRs, surfacing the right data for the right question or challenge that customer is calling in with. All of that is governance and context conspiring together to be able to make your agent dependable and repeatable so that you can get work out of them that is delegated decisions to a point. And again, you keep hearing about human in the loop across all of this agentic activity, but no one really tells you where that human should be. We can come in with very strong recommendations on where you would put that human in the loop, but at the end of the day, you get to control that with governance. Where do you want your human in the loop, looking at things, making those decisions about your business, and being able to feed that information into your people? And even on that last one, on the route profitability, there's so much data in there. Some of those decisions become apodictic. They become very self-evident. And you could then later, through the governance and the context, decide, you know what, I'm getting too many of these. Let's just go ahead and fix these on setup rather than me having to find out at the end of the route that I'm losing money. Let me just do a check up front based on what I've learned, because it is a learning system. So that's the power of really leveraging these tools against your enterprise and the ability for you to have control over it and avoid the AI sprawl that we're seeing that is becoming difficult to manage in the industry. So those were the only two things that I really wanted to call out.
Okay, that was a great demonstration there from both of you. So thank you for going through that with our audience. And it's just exciting to see these solutions in action. So let's talk now about, where this all leads. Our last topic here is about scaling up for sustainability, but here we mean sustainable both in the environmental sense and in the sense of long-term viability. So Anton, I'll start with you here. How can waste operations scale this technology for sustainability in both of these ways?
Yeah. So look, economic, social, environmental sustainability, it's a huge imperative for waste and recycling industry. We consistently see, if you look at anybody's sustainability report, there's a few areas that are consistently targeted. It's always about increasing the volume that you're recycling, as well as reducing your emissions and your energy output in order to get there. And I think agentic AI is a great opportunity to make sustainability an operational capability as opposed to just measuring your footprint after the fact, as opposed to just being a data report, right? So route optimization is probably one of the biggest players here. Having, being able to make decisions on the day of execution proactively, to move jobs around, to take jobs off one truck, put it on another truck, to do some sequence optimization, to do service day optimization, to really try and minimize the number of tips you're doing, all those sort of things, right? That all leads to less fuel, less emission, and, that will improve your environmental metrics and your business metrics as well. We're a big believer in saving the planet, but making profit at the same time, and quite often, luckily, both economic and environmental sustainability go each other hand in hand, and that's great. So identification of contamination, that's another really good example how we can use technology, camera feeds on trucks to spot contamination in real time, or spot overfills, things like that. That can really help change customer behavior. So in the long term, I think agentic AI has a huge role to play in improving margins, but also in achieving sustainability goals. And that's really important, because if you're not doing that, your competitors will be doing it. So, everybody, this is a bit of a land grab at the moment. The people who get ahead with agentic AI, they'll have a competitive edge, but everybody's going to be there, right? So you need to differentiate yourself from the pack there. And that will require a cultural change within the business as well, not just a technical change as well. or else you risk falling behind.
Yeah, great points there. And you know,
Yeah.
Anton, appreciate you going through that. And you know, as others adopt this technology and improve their services, those who don't keep up are going to see, you know, business consequences, right? So, Evan, you know, I'd like to get your thoughts on this as well.
Look, I 100% agree on this. As you brought up at the beginning, I'm also teaching this at Jackson University. We're realizing that this is a major adoption shift. It's a role change for most companies where we have loads of people and managers and multiple layers trying to drive the output into the business. We're shifting that where folks are elevating to AI stewards where they're more outcome based and they're delegating output into agents. Now that has a couple of really strong sustainability messages to it. For instance, you know, we've long used AI to optimize a route to be able to find out what the idealized best route is, and you're going to get some percentages of that idealized, right? Because the real world throws curveballs at you when the truck leaves the yard, right? It's not going to be perfect every time, but having the ability to analyze things like predictive maintenance that adds a little bit more predictability to that optimized route because different trucks, depending at different maintenance styles, are going to run differently. Having vision AI being able to detect overfill containers or contamination are going to optimize the route. If you're overfull and you're having to go do a dump and, you know, into the landfill more often than you had planned, you've blown up your optimized route. Those things start to conspire together to be a multiplicative effect to get you closer and closer and closer to your optimized route. And the cost for doing that is not as high. And it's the connective tissue between these areas where performance sustainability is really beginning to shine. That's the AMCS term for being profitable and sustainable. If I can shave several gallons of diesel per vehicle per month off of a route, I'm not introducing or burning that fuel into the environment, but I'm also not buying it, right? That's a direct one-to-one relationship for being performant sustainability. It's profitable and sustainable, and it impacts it. And using AI and agentics, we've been able to identify sustainability data, and every single time, without exception, very few things are 100% in this world, is it shows that where you have the high carbon footprint, there are inefficiencies you can exploit and gains you can get. So it should be an operational leading indicator into your efficiency. It should be part of your operational plan, as Anton said. And I would say if you go to market right now looking for an AI steward or whatever the popular name ends up being, I can tell you the universities are 4 to 6 years away from graduating at a master's level these type of students. We've got a little bit of ways to go to understand how to communicate with an orchestrator agent, how to command sub-agents, how to drive prompts, how to provide context and governance into these agents. That's a new muscle that for the next 4 to 6 years, we're encouraging business to get on this rail. You're going to have to learn to build those muscles and help transform your personal collateral, your people, to start being outcome focused away from being outcome focused. And it's not going to be an easy journey, but if you don't start now, what's going to happen is by the time you've called a group of people to a meeting to look at a proposal or respond to an RFP, your competitor who's done this walk already has responded, won the business, and has a vehicle en route to service the site. So it is going to be hard to catch up. It's just hopefully the demos we've shown today shows you the power that these things can bring and the acceleration of the iterative process that agentic technology is going to bring to your business. It's a journey, but we're the partner that's going to bring to you holistically the entire journey. We're providing agents out of the box. We're providing tools to be able to build a boutique. We're providing the framework to allow you to drive your own context and your own governance. And we've got a process that we think works with the AI stewardship model and being able to manage it. So we're in it to win it with you. It is a journey, but we're trying to encourage customers. They need to start this journey now.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting to think 4 to 6 years out. That's that's definitely something to think about there. And that's just a perfect point for us to transition now to our Q&A. Evan and Anton, thank you so much for your time and insights. Let's take some questions from our audience here. A reminder, you can use that Q&A widget to submit your questions. Let's get to the first one here. It says, how do we know you can trust agentic AI to make decisions? Who'd like to take that one or
That's a
start for us?
great question. I'll jump on this one because this is the model of the AI steward. The AI steward has three muscles. It knows how to prompt into the agent, to ask the agent to do things and set that up. It understands how to define the context. What data is required and what is the context? What are the rules and governance with which that data needs to be used to make a decision? But the most important piece that's coming out of this agentic process, if we were in manufacturing, this would already be understood. When you put in raw material at the beginning of a manufacturing supply and you're producing something out the back end of that, there's a whole number of stations, whether it's a shredder, a shaker, a boiler, if you're making paper, those are all steps that have targets, conformances, and absolute limits. I put something in, it should look like this and sample this on the way out, and then move to the next step on the assembly line. Businesses are going through a transformation where they're becoming operating systems, where each one of those flows is a workflow step into the grander whole, where I need to know what I'm putting into it, what I'm expecting the output to be, and how do I grade that output within targets, conformance, and absolute limits. So you're never going to know before you put it in what the right answer is, but you're going to know the range of acceptable answers before you have to engage. And then that fourth muscle is once it goes outside absolute limits, digging in and go, was my prompt bad? Was my context bad? Or did it do something outside of its governance? And then I'm going to go fix it. And I'm going to have this agent fix what it did wrong. I'm not going to fix the agent. There's too much of that where you need to go in and massage and repair what the agent did. That's not agentic. That's just you dealing with bad AI. You need to learn the framework so that you can just put bad product back into the front end and get the right product out the side. So understanding what good looks like at each one of the stages of that workflow and how you're measuring it, that's how you know you can trust it, because the output comes within those conformances that you've set.
Mhm.
Anton, do you have any other comments on that one?
Yeah, look, I think, ultimately, of course, you will make some mistakes with AI, I think, but that's why it's really important to have something that's auditable, where every agent action is logged, it's auditable, it's bounded by the rules you define. As you say, Evan, you set the guardrails. So what I would recommend is, trust is built incrementally. So start with something low risk and then expand from there as your confidence grows, So that's the way to go, in my opinion.
All right, great answer there from both of you. Okay, we've got another question here. It says, "Hi, Anton." So this is going towards you. What input data is
This from me.
required for an AI agent to perform this analysis? Great question there.
Yeah, well, look, I think Andrew's probably referring to either the margin agent or the root profitability analysis we did there. I think obviously there's two things. Having access to an MCP layer that can provide context on the data, but also the user as well. Don't forget about the user. If the user has the industry knowledge required to put together a pretty decent prompt. So if you're prompting this by yourself, you probably know what you're looking for. And if you've got a really good MCP layer, then that can give context to the data you have, then you're in good shape. A lot of it is trial and error. A lot of it is like, let's see what data we're getting out, how do we shape it and validate it. But ultimately, data you've seen today that's been in the agents I've shown has come from having a very complete data set within our database, or within that unified data layer that we talked about earlier. And that's everything, on the root analysis, you can see there's information coming from telematics, there's mileage, there's information coming from GPS snail trail for the route that the truck came. It's tapping into pricing elements of what we call our service agreements, into cost elements of what we call cost agreements, bringing that all together, and even talking to the scales to verify destination weights on tips that we did as well. So having a really good ubiquitous data that's digitized, but then having an MCP layer that knows how to work with somebody with industry knowledge to pull that data out and present it in a meaningful manner. I hope that answers your question, Andrew. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for taking that question on. Okay, let's get to another one here. All right, will this replace our people?
So
You want to take that?
there's short game and long game. Yeah, I'm going to run at this because
Yeah.
I think this is important. So at AMCS, we bought into the person plus AI strategy very early. You've heard me use the term AI steward. That right there tells you that there's still humans involved. You've heard anywhere on the internet, when you have agents doing anything, there needs to be a human in the loop. Hilton. So I don't think humans go away, but I think their jobs are transforming to outcome versus output. There is going to be a nervousness here, because what I've just seen and found personally is that our strongest producers in our current business world, those that produce artifacts and produce these outputs, they make some of the best stewards because they already have a sense of what good looks like. But they have so intrinsically tied their personal identity, their value to that output, it's going to be a challenge to get them to look at outcomes. They've just not built the muscles for it, and they're at risk. They're going to see this as not a great transformation for them. They've identified themselves with it. My recommendation to every business is put your arms around your people, hold on to them, and train them how to be good stewards. Now, the goal of agentic AI, as you can see, the iteration gets very fast. The ability to make these decisions and get this data that used to be weeks is now happening in minutes. So your ability to grow your business should be exponential. So as business leaders or leaders anywhere within your industry should be to grow your business as high and as vast as you can get it. Now, at the end of that journey, if you've got no more worlds to conquer, there's no more empires to grow into, I'm not going to tell you not to right size your business. We are going to see a shrinking in the layers organically over time, because you're just not going to need all of that middle management telephone game that most corporate structures have. They're not bringing stronger value as you bring your stewards to outcome based. So there is going to be a transformation. What that looks like, hold to the end of your journey. Grab your ROI, grab your use cases, make sure it makes sense, train your people to be good stewards, and grow your business. And they can adapt. They're going to be flexible. They're going to be broad. At the end of that journey, when you can't grow anymore, then business does what business does, and they right size their business. But I just told you that there's going to be no university out there for 4 to 6 years that's going to produce an AI steward. Why would you reduce or release into the marketplace people you've trained on how to do this to quicken your competition? These folks are going to be valuable, that know how to make this transition, understand strongly what outputs are, and understand how to make that journey flip to outcomes. They're going to be your most valuable people resources. I think as far as people cuts, so far, I don't know how. I don't have this wisdom yet. We're working on it, on how to save the best producers, but you're going to see a natural churn against your highest producers, because they're not going to make the leap from outcomes to from output to outcomes. So it shouldn't replace your people right now, is the answer. You should hold on to everyone that can do this work.
Great wisdom there and answer from both of you. And that's all the time we have today. But I'd like to thank our panelists again for chatting with us. This has been just a really enlightening conversation. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank our listeners as well. And, we hope you've gotten some great perspectives on how agentic AI can set your organization apart today and into tomorrow. If you'd like to learn more about what you heard today, please contact AMCS to discuss how you can get started with agentic AI solutions. There is also a white paper on this topic that you can access in our resources widget for more information. So be sure to check that out. Today's webinar will also be available on demand if you want to review anything we've talked about today. Thanks again for watching.
Thanks.